Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Tacoma Cyclist. I'm Tacoma Cyclist, and Boogeyman's somewhere else. If you remember our last episode, which I'll link to up here, I started rebuilding this bike to fit me so I could use it as a crit bike and travel bike, but really primarily a crit bike. I broke a really nice Bianchi Ultra XR4 earlier this year in a crit, thinking I was invincible. Maybe got a little cocky and the bike bit the dust. So I want to go with something that is a little older of a bike, and I probably won't be super upset if I happen to break it. I'll always be upset if I break a bike. That's just not cool. But I'll be a lot less upset if I break an older aluminum frame, and frankly, it's probably pretty hard to do that. So I'm building this out to be my crit weapon, as I'm calling it. Primarily, I want this to be a fast bike. I'm not concerned overall with weight, except for the fact that this bike is already pretty flippin' light. Like, it's under 16 pounds as it's configured right now, even with these kind of heavier aluminum wheels and aluminum finishing kit. It's under 16 pounds. I mean, Cannondale's always made a lightweight bike, and this is no exception. So, lightweight though is not my concern. I really want fast. In most crits, generally, even if it's got a climb in it, it's a short climb, and adding a pound or even a pound and a half on a bike isn't going to make a difference. I'm interested in parts, but I'm also not interested in breaking the bank. Again, the likelihood is this is going to break, so or at least get wrecked, right? I hope it doesn't break. I hope it doesn't break. But if I've got lesser expensive parts on it, then I'm probably going to be a lot less concerned about the bike and more focused on my recovery when I wreck, if I wreck. I mean, come on, it's a crit. The likelihood's there. All right, so I already showed you the bars yesterday. I'm gonna go ahead and put those on today, but I was waiting for, yesterday, whenever you watch the video. But I was waiting for new cables and new bar tape to arrive before I did that, because I can put the bars on, but I'm gonna have to rewrap it, probably gonna have to recable it, and to be honest with you, I'm just gonna go ahead and do that anyway. So I have those parts in. I've got them right there. I'm gonna show them to you. And again, I went for lesser expensive stuff. So this is the Jaguar. This is kind of the entry-level Jaguar stuff. Reality is all I need is a brake cable, and it either works or it doesn't work. I don't need it to be fancy. I did get kind of a cool smoky gray graphite color. They call it cable. Carbon silver. Okay, I want to go kind of neutral on this. I don't need to go super bling on this. All right, now for super bling, this is a bar tape called Marque, M-A-R-Q-U-E. I found it on Amazon. Actually, I got all this stuff off of Amazon for cheap. This stuff's about a little under half what you would pay for the Supercaz bar tape. And by all accounts, it pretty much looks exactly like the Supercaz bar tape. It's got that oil slick look to it. I'm going to wrap this here in a minute, and I'm going to give you a kind of a review of the bar tape itself as I do that. But there's my unboxing. Overall, has a very similar look, a similar feel, although it feels a little bit more glossy, maybe a little less grippy than the Supercaz. I'm pointing over my shoulder because that bike right there has the Supercaz version of this on it. Now, it comes with these cheap piece of crap plastic bar plugs. Missed. I'm not going to use those. I've got some of the anodized aluminum ones from Supercaz in here anyway. It's an opportunity to save money using cheap bar tape. Hopefully it doesn't bite me in the rear end, but I think if I had just bought the Supercaz, it would have come with some new ones anyway. So if this is your first time buying nice bar tape, just get the Supercaz. It'll come with those anodized bar plugs. They look super swanky. So I'm going to take these bars off. I'm going to show you a little trick that I'm going to do to get this cable fed through this bike. Because this bike right here, it's a bitch to get this cable through. I literally wound up laying on the ground, on the back, in the air with the bike above me while the boogeyman's fishing cables to me to get this one cabled in the first place. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do a little trick to pull this cable all the way through. And I'll show you that in a second, and it involves a blowtorch. First things first, I gotta get the old tape off. That doesn't take very much time. It does take the correct tool though. Because these use hex nuts to lock the bar plugs in, gotta undo those first. This tool is invaluable. Do not try to do braided brake cables and try to cut it with regular wire cutters. It's not going to do the trick. In fact, it's one of the probably the hardest things to cut through is this stuff. And these make all the difference in the world. Okay, well, I'm going to have a booger of a time getting cables through this thing because unfortunately none of my normal tricks for fishing the cables is going to work. The entrance hole on this thing is freaking tiny. It's just big enough for the cable to fit through. In fact, if there's even a fray on the cable, it ain't gonna go through. And then the exit hole, similarly, pretty small. So I'm gonna have to do the old magnet trick. In the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and mount these bars up. These are the new Aero bars. In this stand, I'm not gonna get this level. So my intent is just to get it on. And then once I've got it on and in place, I'll come back later and get the bike on the ground and level it out, level the shifters out and everything else. So I'm not going to tighten everything up super tight. You must check that though when you're done. And in fact, maybe come back a day or two later and make sure it's still tight. Because sometimes when you're working with new equipment, putting bars on, adjusting these bolts, they'll come loose. You don't want that to happen. But again, I'm going to do just a really light tightening, probably about 3 to 4 Newton meters total. Now, as far as weight is concerned, I just added about 80 grams with these bars from the previous bars that were on here. So these are about 80 grams heavier. They're an Aero bar. They're definitely not low profile. They are skinnier, width-wise, but they're not designed to be light. The previous bars that were on there were not designed to be lightweight either. They were these Zip aluminum bars, and those tend to be a little bit thick, chunky. These are thicker, I guess with 2 C's, and chunkier. Now, let me get the shifters in place. Again, these are not going to be perfect. I'm just going to get them close. The nice thing is, though, they do have these pretty good markings on the side of the bars to give you an indication. Bad thing is, if you don't line it up the first time, you're going to have tape around it. It is not really going to work. So, all right, it's taking shape. I'm not going to film me putting the cable through. First of all, because I'll cuss so much that I'll get demonetized. But second of all, it's cabling a bike. You don't need to watch that. There's tons of videos out there. Let me get to this, and then I'll put the bar tape on. So with this Jaguar, they'll oftentimes ship with 2 different ends. This is a Shimano end. This is a SRAM end. You obviously do not want to cut the wrong one, but what you can do is you can always take a look at what you just had, what you just discarded. If I can find whatever I did with that. Here we go. That little mushroom head right there. Mushroom head. I can get rid of these ends, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. You have to get rid of those heads. But I'm going to cut them and give myself just as much cable as I possibly can. This is way more cable. It ships with way more cable than you need. You've got a long one, and you've got a short one. Bet you can figure out where the long one goes. Okay, So I got the bike cabled. I didn't bleed at all. I think I only actually said one cuss word, so I probably should have videoed it. But short version of the story is feeding this cable along this bike. Of course, it's aluminum, so a magnet doesn't stick. This is a pretty powerful magnet. Essentially, I just kept the magnet along here the entire way because the exit hole is right here. Kept the magnet right here the whole way, dragged it on down. Cable popped right out the end. I even had to do it twice in a period of about 5 minutes because I accidentally fed the wrong cable through. So, whoops. In any case, it's all cabled now. I can tell just by looking at this that this wing is way too freaking high. I mean, it's like, it's angled up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this off of the work stand. I'm going to get the wing and the shifters pretty much where I want them to be while it's on the ground. There's going to be some micro adjustments that I'm going to need to make over the next couple of weeks. But the problem is this bike lives on the trainer for the most part during this time of the year. So I'll make it good enough for the trainer, and then I'll have to come back in the spring prior to the first race I do with this bike and then readjust. So I'm going to get it like 9/10 of the way there. And then the rest of it I'm going to... I intentionally left the brake cables to be very long. I'll trim those soon enough, but at the moment I left them long because, well, I want to have the flexibility to trim them. And I also don't want to put the ferrules on the end yet, so I don't want to run the risk of accidentally, fraying the cables. So I want them long. I can adjust now that I got the front wheel on here. And besides, I got some serious slop right there. I got to fix that real quick. So as soon as I fix that, I'll be good to go. First things first, let's adjust this. It's not going to do me much aerodynamic benefit if the wing is almost in a vertical position. I think that I don't want my bars acting like a sail. I'd much rather they act, like aero bars. So I want them pretty flat. Not dead on flat, but pretty dang close. All right, so vertically and horizontally, these are pretty much right where I want them. So I'm going to do up the tightness. Again, I am going to bust out the torque wrench to fully tighten this bad boy. It says here to tighten it, this is an S-Works stem that's on here. I think it says 5 Newton meters. I'm going to take a look at that. I'm going to tighten it exactly to torque spec. And then in about a week, I'm going to check it again. There is blue Loctite on these bolts, so they shouldn't really move once they've been tightened. But I don't like the word shouldn't in that sentence. The other thing I want to do is I want to make sure that my cables are free as I turn. And I know I could have wrapped this on the inside. I probably could have even given myself a little less slack here. I'm not anti-cable off the front. In fact, I don't like this integrated cable setup that a lot of bikes are going with now. It just, to me, there's no, it is definitely a solution looking for a problem. Sure, the cables might introduce 0.5 watts of drag. So does my beer gut. All right, those are probably rocking around 4 Newton meters or so, 4.5 Newton meters. Again, I'm going to use the torque wrench on that. I can tell you that the shifters are way too low now. I'm going to get these close to each other height-wise. They may not be perfect. I can tell the difference between, honest to God, 1 millimeter change on my saddle. But on my shifters, I'm just not that picky. Boogeyman is very picky about it, and definitely can tell when they're not lined up. I like mine pointed in ever so slightly. I'm starting to see this trend where people literally have their hoods to the point where they're in the middle. Sorry to tell you, that does not improve your aerodynamics. There have been studies that prove it does not improve your aerodynamics. It makes you look like a chode, and it makes it so you can't reach your brakes. And I've seen that when somebody almost took me out because they couldn't brake. These should be done up pretty tight. It's aluminum bars. I'm not going to damage them by tightening them, even to 8 or 9 Newton meters. You will damage yourself if you don't tighten them enough and you wreck out. All right, while I got it on the ground, let me check the brake. Oh yeah, definitely had some slop in there. Definitely don't want that bolt slipping. All right, it's actually so tight that I'm getting some brake rub. That's fine. I'm going to adjust this anyway. And one of the things that's coming in to replace are some wheels, and I went with a narrower set of wheels. I know the trend nowadays is wider, wider, wider. This is a crit bike. It doesn't need wider. In fact, this CAD 12 doesn't really have a lot of clearance for extra wide wheels. Time to put on some bar tape. Once again, I'm not going to video that. I guarantee you I'll be cussing putting on bar tape. So I'm just going to put this on. We'll see how it looks in a minute. I suck at wrapping bars. Like, way worse than everybody else on the planet. And I'm not going to say this is a good job wrapping the bars. I see all sorts of issues. My figure 8 here kind of sucks. But actually pretty good bar tape. It's pretty flexible, so it stretches a little bit, not enough to be hard to work with, but it's not bad. I think I got a pretty decent wrap job on this. So a couple minor issues, but I think that'll kind of work out with time. And I've always tended to find that when I wrap a bar, if I do a bad job, if I come back and wrap it again a few days later, since it's already kind of in that shape, works out pretty well. So not bad for cheap Amazon bar tape. I kind of like it. All right, let me do the other one. All right, first moment of truth. The bars are heavier, so I expect that the bike will be, in fact, heavier. Makes sense, right? Let's see how much though. So like I said, really in the end, weight isn't that important to me. But, I mean, it is a factor, right? But it's still a crit bike. Now, one exception here, I did take off the computer mount. That's not the computer mount that's going to be on here ultimately. That makes a difference of about 28 grams. So, yeah, not a big deal probably. Let's give this a try. See how long it takes to do this. Just have to hold real still. All right, after changing out the bars, I was below 16 pounds by a pretty good margin. I'm now 15.88 pounds, so I'm still below 16 pounds or 7.21 kilograms. So still an incredibly light bike. Yeah, I went up just a touch, I mean, marginally. But my secret weapon is still coming in after the holidays. So I'm filming this today. It's Christmas Eve. You'll see the big stuff that will come in for this bike shortly thereafter. So stay tuned. I'm just about finished making this into my crit weapon. But for now, I get to go throw it on the trainer and blow my brains out for 2 hours as I just sit there and ride staring at a screen for 2 hours doing nothing. All right. Thanks again for stopping by and checking out this vid. Hopefully it was helpful or informative. And if you are in the process of building up your own kind of crit bike, let me know. Throw some of the specs down in the comments below. I'll happily share all the details about all the various parts that I got and everything. If you like the video, like I said, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like the video, you're in the second video of a series. What are you doing? Evaluate your life choices. Other than that, happy holidays and see you guys again soon.